Hello and welcome to another episode of Solar Distancing, where we get back to the basics of energy independence. I'm your host, your quarantine host, Chris Kroll, the managing editor of Solar Builder. The series thus far is mainly focused on residential applications, but especially in these uncertain times, we wanted to make sure we didn't gloss over business owners who are obviously struggling just as much as anyone else of all shapes and sizes, and they could use some advice on how to operate more efficiently and to reduce costs. What's interesting is commercial solar seems like it would be a no-brainer, but the segment is kind of lagged behind. You have all this roof space. You'd think like, oh yeah, of course, put some solar up there, reduce energy costs, and we're just running a more efficient business. But solar doesn't solve for some of the biggest issues that commercial buildings deal with in the form of demand charges. So it doesn't always work as a value proposition. The way to then counteract that is usually by adding storage. But storage kind of brings its own issues in terms of it can be expensive. There's other permitting. And so then we're back to kind of having a difficult sell for some solar installers to get their, just their pitch ready. But so today we're chatting with John Powers, CEO of Extensible Energy, who has an interesting middle ground solution. How you doing, John?
I just get better all the time. How are you, Chris?
Yeah, I'm hanging in there. So I was really interested in chatting with you about this topic. And I guess first I wanted to just start with you to explain a little bit more of what I was getting into. Exactly what is a demand charge and why is this an issue for solar only applications?
Right. Yeah, so you and I pay for energy by the kilowatt hour at home, and that's pretty straightforward. A business pays for kilowatt hours, but they also pay what's called a demand charge, which is based on the highest usage 15 minutes of every month. So if you think about that, your building is making its worst mistake once a month, and that is half your energy bill, your electricity bill. Solar is great at saving energy. It makes the meter run backwards in most states, but it's not great at saving demand. One cloud can ruin your whole month, and one operating mistake can blow away the savings for the whole month. So the solar business is kind of making proposals to commercial buildings with one hand behind its back. It's only saving on half the electricity bill.
Gotcha. So let's enter DemandX, which is your software solution, into the mix here, and kind of explain how it can attach itself to what solar is doing in a different way than what a battery system would do. And how are you solving for this?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm a big fan of batteries. I drive a battery to work every day. I think batteries have a big part in the energy transition that we're all in now. But for behind the meter, small to medium commercial application, they're still very expensive. And all they're really providing in terms of demand charge management is some kind of load flexibility. Well, let's look first at what loads are flexible already in the building. DemandX monitors the whole building usage and the solar output, so you can sync up your usage patterns with the generation from the solar, so you don't incur such high demand charges. Many loads in a building are flexible, and the largest one is heating and cooling. Nobody cares when the compressors run. They only care that it's comfortable inside. But that turns out to be a lot of energy. So shifting a little bit of the cooling into a period where there's more abundant solar being generated can save you up to 30% or more of your demand charges.
Wow, 30%. That's pretty significant. Can you maybe just clarify also what types of commercial buildings we're specifically talking about now where this is maybe most relevant?
Yeah, so we think of any building where HVAC or heating and cooling is the biggest load. So office, retail, church, school, municipal building, conditioned warehouse, anything like that. We try to stay away from places where the largest loads are business critical. So we haven't done any work yet on commercial grocery stores because refrigeration, you don't want to mess with the food. Cooking, you can't really flex the loads of a kitchen very easily. But in any building with significant size or thermal mass, as we call it, shifting the heating and cooling around is enough to save a lot off your demand charges. And we're also looking into how to control electric vehicle charging behind the meter. We just finished our first project with a stationary battery, so we can control batteries too. If you're buying them for resilience purposes, that's a terrific use of a battery. So that project is interesting. It's a car dealer in Colorado that bought a big battery for resilience, but has let us use 50% of that battery to increase the demand charge reduction that we're providing. We're already controlling their heating and cooling. We combine that with the battery and give even bigger demand charge savings.
So this is interesting to me. So I guess one thing is, can this be deployed, or are you deploying it without solar? I mean, could just doing this on its own in terms of managing the HVAC, is that enough to make a dent?
Yeah, you certainly can. And the reason we like to do it with solar is that solar does take care of a lot of the energy usage needs in the middle of the day. And so the residual demand charges are mainly because of short periods of high demand when the solar is either rolled off or clouds going by or something like that. So if we control just a few hours of the day, we can save a lot in combination with solar. Without solar, you're basically shifting energy usage around from one period of high usage to another period of high usage. So we can flatten out and take maybe 10 or 15% off the top of demand charges without solar. But with solar, there's a big advantage, and that's why we partner with solar contractors.
Gotcha. And I guess I just wanted to also maybe clarify how what this software is doing might differ from maybe just a smart thermostat system
Yeah.
like the building's already
Yep.
using. I guess, can you
Yep.
explain the smarts? That's what's different about it.
For sure. Yeah. We love smart thermostats because we can speak directly to them wirelessly over any of the wireless protocols, Wi-Fi, Zigbee, Z-Wave, any of that. And in fact, in many of the buildings we've done, we just rip and replace dumb thermostats with smart thermostats that we can talk to. The difference is we're monitoring what the solar output is, and we're monitoring what the whole building load is minute by minute. So we know exactly when your building is about to hit a new demand peak for the month. So in fact, we're forecasting what the solar is about to do over the next few hours, and we're forecasting what the whole building load is going to do. And we update that forecast once a minute with new data from the whole building meter and from the solar meter. And that gives us the ability that a smart thermostat doesn't have on its own. We can tell the building how to react to save the most money, not just to be slightly more energy efficient, which is the usual advantage of a smart thermostat.
Right. Yeah. So you're paying attention, or like have the scope of the month in mind, not just,
Mm-hmm.
hey, each day we're solving each day's issue. You're
No.
paying attention to.
Yeah, and that's a great insight actually, because most buildings really live in the moment. They have no memory that of what they've done over the rest of the month or what they're going to do for the rest of the day. And so we give the building the ability to learn from the past and predict the future, so they have better controls in the present.
And you mentioned that the 30% reduction, which it seems like a pretty big number to me. Can you
Mhm.
maybe dive more into what those numbers could be, and maybe do some sort of compare and contrast of an application that maybe was going to have storage but is maybe
Yeah.
thinking of instead?
Yeah. So the way we work with our solar partners is through the tools they're used to using in making proposals to the commercial building owner. So that's shout out to Energy Toolbase and Aurora and the folks who are doing terrific work on better analysis of the load shape of the building and the tariff that the customer is currently on. So when you take a look at sort of a before, then after solar, and then after solar plus DemandX, you can see that if a solar project had a payback time of, say, 8 years, solar plus DemandX might be 6 years or 5.5, depending on the tariff or the load shape of the building. That's a huge win for our solar partners. They can propose something to the customer that is much more compelling and does not require, a lot of times batteries don't improve the payback time nearly that much, and they're much longer lead time, more permits, as you mentioned on the way in, fire suppression, space in the building, master electricians to wire everything up. So even as the price of batteries comes down, the price of master electricians is not coming down. The price of permitting and space in the building and so forth is not coming down. So the low hanging fruit is what you should pick first. If what you're looking for is load flexibility, look to your own loads first. Look at what can be changed about building operations. Our stuff is software. Software is no capital cost, 1 day installation. There's really no comparison to the value delivered. And again, if you want a battery for other reasons, great. Bring the battery and we'll put that to work for you as well.
Yeah. So for interested installers, this sounds interesting. How do they actually then work with this? Do they work with the software? Does the building owner work with the software? Is that something that you guys are still paying attention to and monitoring? I mean, after it's installed, I guess I'm just curious what happens after that.
Right. We put a little gateway into the building that allows us to talk to the devices inside the building. Nobody has to touch that. And then the software runs in the cloud. It runs 24/7, 365 without customer intervention. And the customer and the installer both have a dashboard so that they can see the energy usage of the building, can see the savings, can see that each zone is within the agreed upon temperature ranges and so forth. So they can put as much or as little use into the software as they want to learn more about the usage of the building, but it's a completely hands-off product once it's installed, rather like a battery or rather like the solar. Most of the time the customer is not interacting with a battery or interacting with the solar. Same with our software. It runs for you in the cloud.
So for building owners or people who manage a company that's in a space that they rent and employees are complaining about the thermostat or the temperature, can they just say it's out of my hands?
Well, so we are very careful to talk to the stakeholders in the building beforehand. We talk to the building manager or office manager, depending on the size of the building. We make sure everybody knows that the temperature is going to be kept within a certain band. And, most people report that the building's more comfortable after we got there than before because somebody's actually paying attention to keeping every zone in the agreed upon temperature bands. So, comfort's tricky in any business. I don't know anybody in a building who would say, I'm always comfortable here. But we do a good job in maintaining the temperatures within an agreed upon band.
Gotcha. That's cool. I mean, I'm wearing a ski cap inside, and because it's still cold here in Ohio, but I have to have this little side door open because my dog won't stay in this room unless the door remains open. So my heat's going. I got a lot of issues right now that I don't even think DemandX could help me with.
No, we like you to close the doors on hot or cold days in order to maximize the value of the software. Yeah,
there's only so much I can do. Hopefully, there's no office dogs out there with a lot of high maintenance issues.
We have some awesome office dogs that I miss seeing. One thing about being hunkered at home is I miss the dogs of Extensible Energy. There's some fine critters.
Man, that would be great. Yeah, that's too bad. Well, hey, John, that was all I was looking to get into today. Is there anything else you just wanted to mention before we part ways?
I just want to say that since we're recording this on Earth Day, happy Earth Day to everybody. As somebody who has been through, I think, all 50 of the Earth Days, I just want to, stay optimistic that we'll all get through this and say, keep fighting the fight.
Yeah. 50
Thanks a
Earth
lot,
days.
Chris.
And
Yeah,
let's hope for 50 more. So,
exactly.
all right.
Exactly.
All right. Well, hey, thanks, John. Thanks for all of you for joining us for another episode of Solar Distancing. Until next time, stay safe, stay away, but go solar.